Hi everyone, welcome to Budgets and Tables. Excel exercises 1, 2, and 3 are going to be covered in this video. So let's look at exercise 1. You've decided to start your own business. Below we see a budget for this business. We'll talk about this in great detail in a moment. Question here is, what is the expected result based on the information below? We are asked to fill the blue cells. Okay, so first let's quickly glance at this business. This business has two products that it sells. One is priced $200 and the other $350. We expect to sell $25 per month of product 1 and $15 of product 2. The business also has fixed costs, server costs, marketing costs, and salary costs are fixed costs, and they're reported yearly. In addition to fixed costs, businesses have variable costs, and these usually depend on the number of units of the product that we sell. Here we see the variable cost for product 1 is $25 per unit sold. Remember, we sold, or we expect to sell 25 product 1 units per month. Each of those is going to cost 25. Product 2 has a variable cost of 50. Next we go over to where the exercise is going to be conducted. We see in this first section we want to get monthly revenue. So monthly revenue can be looked at as product 1 monthly revenue and product 2 monthly revenue, and then the sum. So let's get each of these in turn. First off, monthly revenue from product 1. That is going to be the price of product 1 multiplied by the number of units sold of product 1. This times this. Let's perform that operation in the cell. We click on the cell and we type equals. Then we click on the cell reference for product 1 price, which is in cell C9, and then we use the asterisk or star symbol to do multiplication. And we click on the number of units we expect to sell of product 1. So monthly revenue for product 1 is expected to be $5,000. Let's do the same for product 2. Equals 350 price times 15 units per month. I'm using cell references and we get 5,250. Now the monthly revenue is going to be the sum of these two. So let's put the sum in this cell using AutoSum in the top right hand corner. We use sum. Excel suggests the two cells above. That's appropriate, so we hit enter. We see that monthly revenue is expected to be $10,250. Now let's move on to monthly costs. In addition to revenue, businesses have costs, fixed and variable. The first three are fixed costs. We looked at them before. We saw the yearly cost of each of these items. Here we're asked for monthly costs. So we're going to have to divide each of these by 12. So let's do that using formulas in Excel. So server costs equals the yearly costs for server divided by 12 for 12 months. And we get the monthly cost. Equals the marketing cost for a year divided by 12 gives me the monthly cost. I can also drag this formula down if I wish, and this will adjust to 3,500, or I could have just typed equals salary divided by 12. So in this instance, for these three cells, the formula was identical. So I could have just typed it for server costs and then dragged it down for the remainder. But I have to be careful that these were in the same order as these. Next, cost for product 1. Well, cost for product 1 depends on the cost of each unit and the number of units that we sell. So if I sell 25 units and each one costs 25, if I multiply these two, I'm going to get the cost for product 1 equals, I'm using cell references for all of these calculations. Next, the cost for product 2 equals the number of units that we expect to sell of product 2, it's 15, multiplied by the cost of each of the units. And we have the cost for both of the products. And we're finally asked in this section to get the sum of monthly costs. So we simply will use the AutoSum function one more time and hit enter. And we see that monthly costs are $6,525. Next, yearly revenue. Yearly revenue can be simply calculated by taking monthly revenue and multiplying it by 12. So let's perform that operation here. Equals cell F11 times 12. Our yearly revenue is expected to be $123,000. Yearly costs can be calculated by taking monthly costs sum and multiplying that by 12 to make it yearly. Equals cell F19 times 12. We see that we have yearly costs of $78,300. Now finally, the much expected result is, what do we expect at the end of the year? Are we going to make money? Are we going to lose money? And how much money is that going to be? Well, we can simply subtract our revenue, so equals cell F21, where the revenue is, minus cell F22. And we see that we're expecting to make a profit of $44,700. So it looks like this might be a successful business. Now, before we move on to exercise 2, let's play around with some of these numbers and see how putting formulas is a much more advantageous way of doing this type of exercise than actually putting in the numbers in the calculations. So, what do I mean? Let's say we have control of the price. Every business has some control of the price that they want to charge their customers. So let's see what would happen if we change the price of product 1. Well, I hope I don't have to do all of this work again. I hope everything will update automatically. And this is where the major advantage of using formulas is. So instead of charging $200, let's say we'll charge a little more, $250. Before I hit enter, pay attention to this area here. A lot of things should update. As you can see, the revenue from product 1 updated, the sum of the revenues updated, the cost of product 1 doesn't change because we still sell the same amount of units and the cost is still 25. However, the yearly revenue did increase, the yearly cost didn't decrease or increase, but our expected result did go up. So that's nice to see. Let's try tinkering with something else. Let's return the price to 200, and let's say, actually, we expect to sell a lot more units. Product 2 actually is probably going to sell a lot more. So let's say we're going to sell 30 units. Everything in the blue cells should reflect this new update. Let's hit enter and see what happens. Well, we're selling 30 units. The price didn't change, so the revenue does go up. Total revenue for the month goes up. The cost of product 1 increased because now we're selling more of them, so we're selling more units, and so the cost increased. So both revenue and cost increased, and profit dramatically increased to $98,700 from about $40,000 that it was before. Let's undo what we did using the undo in the top left hand corner. The button over here with the arrow undoes what the changes that we just made. So we're back to the original numbers from the exercise. The lesson here is to use formulas and use references as opposed to typing numbers directly into Excel when it is appropriate. It pays off in the long term. Now let's move on to exercise 2. In exercise 2, our company just started to earn money, and now we want to expand from our kitchen table to an office space. So let's look at some of the things that we're going to need for our new office. There's going to be costs associated. So let's take a look. We're going to need an office chair, one office chair, which is $199. We're going to need one desk, one computer screen, 4 binders, 2 sets of business cards, a meeting table, and 4 normal chairs. In the blue cells, we've set up a way of calculating what these costs are going to be. So, first column, we have the number of units of each of these items that we're going to need for our new office. Let's type those in. We need one office chair. So, 1. We're going to need one desk. We're going to need a computer screen. We're going to need 4 binders, 2 business cards, sets of business cards, a meeting table, and 4 normal chairs. So these represent how many of each of these products we're going to require. In the next column, we're going to write the price of each of these products. The office chair costs $199, the desk $499, the computer screen $249, the binders are $5 each, the business cards are $19 a set, the meeting table is $399, and the normal chairs are $49 a piece. Perfect. Finally, let's get the total price of each of these items. Since some of them only are a single item, the calculation is very simple. But some of them we need multiple units. So let's multiply how many units we need by the price of each unit. Equals 1. So I'm going to click on the reference instead of typing number 1 times $199. No surprise that the chair is going to cost us $199. Now I need to do the same thing for all the rest of these rows. So instead of repeating those calculations by typing them in, let me use autofill here. So I grab the bottom right hand corner and then I drag this formula down, thereby autofilling it until I get to the 4 normal chairs, and voila, very quickly Excel updates all the total costs of these new items I need for my office. As you can see, you can do a check. 4 chairs, $49 each. That's a little less than $200, and the calculation was correct. Finally, let's figure out what the total cost is going to be for all these new items I'm going to need. So again, I'm going to use the sum function, and I'm going to sum all the costs, and I'm going to see that I have a total cost of $1,600. Now it might be appropriate to make this a comma separated variable. So I click on the cell and I click comma style. And since it's 0 cents, I'm going to reduce the number of decimal places. Everything I'm doing with formatting is contained here. Next, let's look at a couple questions that go along with the example we just did. First, we filled out all the blue cells, so we found the total cost to be $1,600. Next, B, how many units of product 1 do I need to sell to cover the cost of establishing the office? I'm not going to include fixed or variable costs. So what I need to do is, I need $1,600 for all these new items. How many product 1s do I need to sell in order to cover this cost? So in this cell, I'm going to do a simple calculation. I'm going to take the price of all these items and then divide by the price of product 1, which I have in a cell above. Okay, so let's do that with references. Equals cell F39 divided by cell C9. And I see that if I sell 8 product 1s, I will cover the cost of all these new items I need. Finally, for exercise 2, question C. How many percent of the total cost is the desk? Well, the desk is 499. Now, I want that as a percentage of the total cost. So what I need to do is take 499 and divide by 1600. And that will be the percent of the total cost that the desk is. Let's do that in this cell. Equals divided by the total cost. Whoa, that's strange. I'm pretty sure that that doesn't equal 0. If you see this, this is usually due to some formatting issue. So I fix this by clicking on percentage. And I see that it's 31%. If I want to see more decimal places or less, I can always control that. So I see that the desk is 31.19% of the total cost of all these new items that I need for my office. Now let's move on to exercise 3. In exercise 3, we're looking at a family that has monthly expenses as explained by this table. Once again, we're told to fill out the blue cells. So first off, before we do that, let's take a look at these. The expenses are listed in this column called expenses. Food and drinks, clothing and shoes, hobbies, traveling, furniture, car expenses, and miscellaneous expenses. The amount of each of these expenses per month is specified in the column amount. What we want to do is understand each of these expenses as a percent of the whole. So what we first need to do is get the total expenses for the month for this family. And it's appropriate to put that under the column amount. So we'll put it in this cell, and once again we'll use the sum function. Again, Excel suggests the correct range of cells, so we just hit enter, and we see that this family has monthly expenses of $2,090. Now we can calculate the percent of each of these items of the whole. So, percent of food and drinks, we would simply do equals the amount of food and drinks divided by the total. Okay? Now, before I hit enter, I want to be careful here. If I just hit enter here, I'll get the correct answer. And I might want to change this to a percentage later, but for now, let's just hold off on that. So, food and drinks is about 39.6% of the total monthly costs of this family. There is one problem. I don't want to type this over and over for each of these items. I want to be able to drag this formula down using autofill. But if I do this, I'm probably going to get some error. Let me undo that. Let me think why I'm getting the error. Well, when I drag a formula down and I use autofill, the references also go down. So if the first cell was this divided by this, when I drag this down to the next cell, this cell is going to be this number divided by this number, because both of the references will drop down 1. Sometimes you want that to happen. That's called a relative reference. Sometimes you don't want that to happen, like in this case. So I want this to be not moving when I move this formula down, but I want this to move each time. So I leave this reference relative and I make this reference absolute, and that locks this one into place so it doesn't move down when I drag this formula down. So let's see how to do that. First off, let's delete what we did and start from scratch. Equals this number. Now we want this number to change as we move the formula down. Divided by total. We don't want the total to change. The number in the denominator has to stay the same for all of these calculations. So we use absolute cell reference for this. And the way you do that is you click the F4 button after you click on the reference. On your keyboard there's an F4 button. If you click that, it puts dollar signs around the column and the number of the row and column number reference of the cell. This makes the cell an absolute reference and it won't change. Let's hit enter and we get the same result, but now when we drag this formula down, it's going to work correctly for all of these expenses and not just for food and drinks. Voila. Now, while we're here, it might not be a bad idea to change the format to a percentage. And if you like, you can show more decimal places to your heart's content. I'll show 2 decimal places. So we see that food and drinks is 39.62%, car expenses are 11%, and so on. Now, if we get the total of all these, it should be 100%. Let's just check that that's correct. We'll click here, we'll go to auto sum, choose sum, hit enter, and we see in fact that this sums to 100%. Perfect. Now, one last thing we'd like to do in this exercise is to make a pie chart. A pie chart is a really good tool to give you a visual aid on these numbers. How do you build a pie chart? Well, the easiest way is to highlight the names and the numbers together, and then go over to the insert ribbon, and in the charts group, choose the pie chart subgroup. Then choose the 2D pie chart at the top. And this gives us something to play with. We might want to change some things on this. For example, a better chart title is appropriate. Let's call this Family Monthly Expenses. Hit enter, and that name has changed. We see we have a legend already, but if you don't like the current look, you can actually add the percentages in each of these slices and make this a little bit more visually appealing by going over to the design and choosing from one of these chart styles. I personally like this one. It shows me the percentages of each slice, and I have a legend, so I know food is roughly 40%, car expenses are 11%, and so I get a great visual representation of how this family is spending money every month. Well, thank you for doing exercises 1, 2, and 3 together with me here. Be sure to continue practicing and try more exercises in Microsoft Excel. Bye-bye.